Love lives here.
And so, as I mentioned, we are working with the theme this year of timeless wisdom, evolutionary vision, or as we have it hanging here in the sanctuary right there, guided by vision, grounded in wisdom. That's another way of saying the same exact idea, same exact concept. And this month, we are working with the theme of Holy, Holy Uprising. Remember, we're spelling holy, holy, W-H-O-L-L-Y, then H-O-L-Y, and then uprising. So it is a completely, totally, tubularly, awesomely sacred uprising. Up-leveling in consciousness and uprising in consciousness, and that is what we've been working with this whole month. Is to up-level the up-leveling of our consciousness and stepping forward. And so today we are working with the theme of boldly living a new story. Boldly living a new story. So, do you have any good stories? What do you think? Do you have any good stories? Yeah, yeah. Do you think you have any stories at all? Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, we all got stories, don't we? Right? We all have stories. We all have lots of stories, right? Yes, we do. So I remember one of my childhood favorite memories or stories. Oh, wow. Huh. Feeling a little about it. My father used to tell us a story that he created called The Big Red Juicy Apple when we were little. And he used to tell us the story that there was this big red juicy apple and it was hanging on the tree and it was getting ripe and it was hanging on the tree. And all these different creatures would come to the apple and want to eat the apple like a worm. And the apple would say, "Oh no, please don't eat me. I'm saving myself for Jeffrey and Michelle," right? And then a bird would come along and, "Oh, please don't." I'm like, "Ooh, yum, a big, red, juicy, delicious apple. I think I'll eat it." And, then the big, red, juicy, delicious apple says, "Oh, no, please don't eat me. I'm saving myself for, Jeffrey and Michelle." And all these other animals would come along. And finally, the apple ends up in the store and mom and dad purchase it. And, Michelle and I receive it. And so sometimes it would be, sometimes at the end of that, there would actually be a big red juicy apple that was produced, and sometimes it was just a nice story. But it was something that our father made up in his own creativity, kind of as a nighttime story or a bedtime story of telling us a big red juicy apple story. And it was personalized for the two of us. And I know that Michelle has picked up that story, and she has been using that with her two kids since the time that they were little. Are you still telling Big Red Juicy Apple? It's been a while. Yeah. Yeah. They're almost 13. They'll be 13 next month. So, that's kind of that age where the Big Red Juicy Apple might not be so cool anymore until you're in your 40s and your 50s and it's like, oh, then it's cool again, right? So So that's one example of a story. So stories can be entertaining, right? They can be entertaining. Stories can be inspiring. We tell stories to evoke compassion. We often invite people to tell their story, to tell their truth, to tell their story, to speak their story, to affirm their truth, to affirm who they are, right? And to inspire folks or to evoke compassion. And then also, we use stories to teach. Those are the ways that we use stories. Would you agree? Yeah. And who is the protagonist of your story? You are, always. Regardless of what kind of story it is, we're always the protagonist of the story. Now, we might have a different role in our stories. We might be the hero, we might be the victim, we might be the innocent bystander, we might be the observer, we might be in a supporting role, but the story that we're telling, the story that we're narrating for ourselves we're always at the center of that story because we're always relating to it, hopefully, or we're relating to it, hopefully, rather than relating from it. Right? There's a difference there that we'll talk about. So we're always looking at that. And so when we have all these different stories, we're telling stories all the time, in case you didn't realize that. You're telling a story right now. I'm telling a story. You listening to me, yep, okay. You're telling a story. Because that story that we're telling, anytime life changes, anytime life shifts, anytime we're experiencing something, we tend to experience it with our mind. We tend to experience it with our thoughts rather than experiencing it for experiencing it. Even as you're listening, you may not quite be always listening like, you might be thinking about the big red juicy apple that I was just talking about, or the cup of coffee that you're looking forward to, right? That we're always telling some kind of a story, we're making some kind of a judgment, or we're not always, but frequently we are making some kind of a judgment, we're making up a story around it based on judgment, based on experience. We're thinking about it rather than being in the presence of it. And so we're constantly living this story, and the story is informed by all the stories that have come before this story. Because what we're doing is we have a tendency to want to categorize, we have a tendency to want to label, we have a tendency to want to put things in boxes so that we can understand them or so that we can relate to them. And yet, when we do that, we're not being fully present with what is. Think of the little kids again, like when Michelle and I were listening to the Big Red Juicy Apple story, right? Even though he told that story countless times, every time it was like this fresh new thing. Every time was exciting, and we knew how it was going to end, that we were going to get a big red juicy apple, or that the big red juicy apple had saved itself for us, right? Even though we knew, we were always present in the moment, able to be present with him as he was relating the story, to be fully present in the love that was being shared, in the story that was being shared, but in the love and in the space that was created for us. Because as little kids, we're not necessarily thinking about yesterday or projecting into the future about tomorrow or 5 years from now or what have you. As little kids, part of the reason why it's hard to remember things for a while for some folks is because we're so living in the present, we're so in the present moment and enjoying the present moment that we're not thinking about that up there or that back there. We're just fully living in the moment. And how free is that? How exciting is that? How wonderful it feels to be living in the present moment, to be with what is. Because my beloveds, when does life happen? It happens in the here and now. It's always happening in the eternal moment that is right now. 2 seconds ago is gone. Life happens right now. But the way we have been using our minds to live life is we haven't actually been living it. We haven't actually been experiencing it. We've been thinking about it. We've just been thinking about it. Think about what was, think about what's ahead. Very rarely do we stop and pause and just experience. And when we stop and we pause and we just experience, then we recognize the perfection of the now moment. There may be challenges, but there does not mean there has to be problems. If we take a moment to be present with the challenge, to turn to the challenge, just to observe the challenge and to be present with the challenge, or observe the feeling and be present with the feeling and just be present with it. We don't have to change it. We don't have to move it. We don't have to do anything to it, but simply turn and be present with it. Just be present with it. And like the weather, the stories come and go. The stories will change. The stories will shift. Right now it's cloudy outside. What are you going to do about that? What are you going to do about the clouds? Absolutely nothing, except experience them for what they are. And later on, it may be sunny. And what are you going to do about it being sunny? You're just going to experience it for what it is, right? So the same thing can happen with our stories. The same thing can happen with those things that we've created, the ways that we've been choosing to live our life or filter our life through. We can just be present with what is, recognizing that there is the changeless change that we each are. The changeless change is that infinite power and presence and the oneness that we are. It is the divinity that we are that never changes, that never shifts. Good morning, Patty. That never shifts, that is always present. It's our very true nature, perfect God, perfect person, perfect being. That is who and what we are. When we recognize that, then everything else shifts, transforms, moves, passes through. This too shall pass. This has come to pass. It's come to pass along. We've come to pass through. The clouds will pass. There will be sunshine again. The cold will pass and there will be warmth again. The warmth will pass and there will be cool again. The sun will pass and there will be rain again. The rain will pass and there will be sun again. This is the way it can be with our stories, with the stories that we've created. So what are the stories that we've created? What are the stories? How did we create these stories that we have a tendency to be experiencing now? We're actually conditioned into them by our beloveds, meaning no harm, and we certainly don't intend harm, but we get conditioned by our experiences, by experiencing the dualities of life that just simply are on this plane. We begin to think of ourselves as individuated or individualized or individuals. And so then there becomes this sense of separation, right? So one of the foundational stories that we tell ourselves is that I'm separate. I'm separate from you, I'm separate from others, I'm separate. That there's a sense of separation. And we know that the sense of separation, right, is the ultimate, what we're trying to overcome, what we're trying to realize is get back to our oneness, right? That there is no real separation, it's just our perception of separation, right? That's really what everything, all of the discord, all of the struggle is rooted really in that sense of separation. We've talked about this multiple times, and we will for multiple times to come, right? But there's that sense of separation. And if there's that sense of separation, then there's also life is dangerous. Life is scary. And then if life is scary or life is dangerous, because I'm separate, so then life is dangerous. If life is dangerous, then what do I need to do? I need to control it. That's the next story. I need to control what happens. I need to have control, right? And if I need to have control, then I need to do everything right. I need to do it right. I need to do it correctly. And if I need to do it correctly, then I quickly recognize that, oh, darn, I'm not doing it correctly 100% of the time. So then I'm not doing it correctly. And then if I'm not doing it correctly, it's a quick, easy jump to not only am I doing it wrong, but I'm wrong. I am wrong. And if I am wrong, then I'm unlovable. And if I'm unlovable, then I'm all alone. And then I realize, oh, separation, life is scary. I need to control it. And we start creating this circle, this pattern that our stories are rooted in relationship to. Sorry, Michelle, I see I'm moving around a little bit. That we get rooted in, and our stories are rooted in this kind of cycle that is kind of this underlying thing. And so, all right, so there's the need to control. And if I can't control it, then I get angry, and then I get frustrated, and then I try to manipulate, and then I try to do this to try to regain control. And if I can't regain control, fine, then I need to make sure that I'm behaving perfectly so that nothing bad can happen to me. And if I can't do that, right? So you see how the cycle can continue. The beauty is, my beloveds, is that rather than going around with a butterfly net in one hand, trying to catch all of the good stuff, right? And a fly swatter in the other hand, trying to bat down everything that we don't like, right? Butterfly. Oh, if I catch enough butterflies, if I get enough money, if I get enough success, right? Right? Or the right butterfly. Ooh, I'm looking for a monarch. I want to catch the right butterfly. I want to catch the right mate. I want the right job or the right whatever. I'll be happy, right? Or if I use the fly swatter and I'm like swatting bugs right and left that, I'm trying to resist or I'm not enjoying or I'm not liking and trying to swat them right and left. If I just swat enough bugs, if I just stamp on enough ants or swat enough flies or enough mosquitoes or whatever it is, if I just swat enough, then I'll be free too, and I'll enjoy life. But what are you really doing is you're trying to catch and you're trying to swat, and you're trying to catch and you're trying to swat. So what are you doing? You're struggling even more. We're struggling even more. So what if, instead of using our mind to try to create a different environment, instead of using our mind to try and control something, instead of using our mind to perpetuate the struggle, we use our mind to be curious. We interrupt this regularly scheduled programming, if you will, right? We interrupt that and we become curious about it. So that we become curious about our experience. So whatever it is that we're experiencing, whether it's joy or whether it's anger or frustration, whether we are sitting here in the sanctuary or sitting there at home or out and about at Costco later today or wherever you are in your moment, in any given moment, what if we actually use our observer consciousness, the actual who of who you are? What if we use that to observe and to go, I see that anger is present here. I see that frustration is present here. I see that joy is present here. I see that love is present here. And if we just observe that and we just recognize it and say, you know what? I see you. I see you. And then become curious about it. Anger's up for me. I wonder why anger is present here. I wonder what this is really about. What story am I telling myself that I'm working myself into a froth over? What story is operating that is causing me this discomfort, that is upsetting the equilibrium? And just be curious about it. Just use your mind to be curious about what is present, what you are experiencing. So that rather than relating from the experience, you're then relating to the experience. Rather than relating from anger, from frustration, you're relating to it. And you can become aware of it. And we're relating to it rather than from it. What kind of life, what kind of world, what kind of new story would emerge if we just took a step back and realized that, you know what? Life is happening for me. Spirit is for me. The universe is for me. It's not working against me. I don't need to struggle against it. I don't need to fight against it. all I need to do is just take a moment and breathe and observe and go, hey, what's here? What's the gift in this? What's for me? And approach it from that place rather than approaching it from the struggling place, the fighting place. We've developed defenses. We've developed stories to protect us. But when we really get down into it and we remember who we truly are, that there is that within us that remains untouched. There is that within us that remains unharmed. There is that within us that remains pure always. We get in touch with that and we relate to that. Then we can bring that heart space, that love space, to whatever experience we're having out here by being fully present with it. Rather than trying to change it, rather than trying to make it different than what it is, by simply being present with the presence that is. So let's take a moment now. I'd like to try something here. A couple things. I'd like for you to think about the word peace. Just think about it. Peace. Peace. Now notice that there is that piece of you that is thinking about the word peace, and there's also that part of you that is observing you thinking about that word peace. The part of you that is thinking the word peace can easily get caught in the experience and go down the rabbit hole because it's relating from. But the part of you that is observing you thinking about the word peace, that part of you is the part that is changeless. That part of you is the part that is actually you. You're not your thoughts. Your consciousness is not your thoughts, your individual thoughts. Your consciousness is that observer. So breathe that in for a moment. What makes you you, the true you, is not your story. The you that you are is consciousness itself. Your story shapes the individualization of who you are. Your story can help shape your experiences of who you are, but how you choose to relate to your story opens a way to remember and be present with and to allow your life to be transformed because you are relating to your story rather than relating from your story. And so breathing in. Wherever you are seated, wherever you are seeing this, wherever you are present with us this morning, I invite you just to close your eyes as long as you're not driving. Just close your eyes for a moment if that's comfortable for you. Please don't close your eyes if you're driving. But just close your eyes for a moment. And listen to the sounds around you. Just notice them. can go ahead and take a deep breath and bring your attention back here to this. So did you notice that you were just experiencing life? You weren't trying to change it. You weren't trying to make it different. You weren't trying to manipulate it. You weren't trying to create something new. You weren't trying to make anything different whatsoever. You're just experiencing life. This is the opportunity that we have to live into a bold new story by living a new way, by using our minds not as a tool to try to manipulate or create or manifest or bring something forth, but to use our mind as an avenue of awareness, to use our mind to as an avenue of awareness. That's the best way of saying it. To use our mind as an avenue of awareness, to bring our awareness, our attention, our compassionate attention to what is. To simply what is. So, my beloveds, this week, as you are going about your day, as you are driving, as you are doing any number of things throughout your day, I invite you to stop and pause. Whenever you remember to, just stop and pause and just check in and say, am I fully present here? Am I experiencing life, or am I thinking about life? Am I experiencing it, or am I thinking about it? And if you're thinking about it, just go, okay, I'm thinking about it. No judgment. I recognize I'm thinking about it. So let me just breathe for a moment and experience it. Without judgment, without story. Without labeling it good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't. Just be present with it for a moment. Because that returns us to the present moment. That returns us to the here and now. That returns us to the only moment that is the eternal now. So are we willing to do this week? Willing to experiment with it, play with it, check it out? Because, here at Science of Mind, in the Science of Mind and Spirit philosophy, the whole idea is I'm not telling you what you have to do. Nobody's telling you you need to believe this or you need to believe that. Everything that we do here, we encourage practical application, experimentation. That's why it's called the science. Because what do you do with the scientific method? You form a hypothesis and then you test it out. It works or it doesn't work, and then you form a new idea, right? You're either confirming it or not. So I invite you to experiment this week. See about interrupting those thought patterns. See about where you're thinking, what you're thinking in any given moment, any given day. Sound good? All right. So let's come together in consciousness now, shall we? I recognize that there is the changeless change. It is perfect God, perfect human, perfect being. It is the one, the all, the only. There is no other. There simply is the one life that is forever expressing itself, forever shaping itself, forever molding itself, forever bringing itself forward in new and glorious ways, in divine right action and divine right harmony. There is no wrongdoing. There is no mistake. There is no thing that stands opposed to this one. It is absolute perfection. It is absolute wholeness. It is beauty and love and wisdom and abundance. And it is so much more. It is the ineffable, that which can't really be named. For by naming it, it limits it. And it is the unlimited. It is the all that is. It is the all in all as all. And so I recognize that it being all that there is, that it is the very essence and it is the very totality of my own being. That I am an individualized expression of this one life. This one life lives, moves, breathes, and has its being in, through, and as me, and I as it. I am inseparable from it. And as I know that this is true of me, I know that this is true of all of life, of all of creation, of each beloved present here this day. Each one is the divine emanation and impartation. Each one is the transparency for the divine. Each one is an avenue of awareness. Each mind is an avenue of awareness because it is one mind, the only mind. And so I speak my word here and now for this beloved community, recognizing that we are boldly living into a new story. We are boldly living a new story as we set down that which has come before, and we no longer project into what we wish to be or what we wish to see, as we no longer ruminate on the past or contemplate the future, but we bring ourselves into this now moment, to the here and now, the only now, the one that is. I recognize that we are having the most brilliant, most beautiful expression and experience of the divine, that we are having a numinous experience right here and right now, that the divine is present. We feel the presence, we are aware of the presence, and we anchor into the presence of the divine, to the presence of God, right here and right now. That is who we are. That is what we are about. And in so doing, we experience the divine in whole, new, beautiful, complete ways, trusting and knowing that the divine, trusting and knowing that the universe is always for us, that we don't need to do anything about it. We don't need to change it. We don't need to try and manipulate it or create or demonstrate or manifest or anything. We just simply bring our awareness and our attention to this now moment. And that is what we do here and now. That is what we are doing now. Focus solely on the breath. Focus solely on the breath of life that is breathing us. And we recognize the perfection of the now moment. And so we live anew. Now, and now, and now, and now, and now. And so I give thanks for this awareness. I give thanks for this holy communion with the divine, this conscious union. And I live anew. And I am grateful for life itself. And so I release this word into the law, knowing that it's already done. It was so in the beginning, it is so now, it will be forever and ever, because it is eternal. And there is only now. I let it be, and so it is.
Love